failure. It's another F word. Are we allowed to swear, Deborah?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay,
It's
another.
my other favorite F word.
Yeah, exactly, which is bouncing back from failure. That's really interesting because entrepreneurs just go through a lot of these, and not just entrepreneurs, everyone. We all go through failures, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Okay, let's start then. So Deborah, I'm sure there are different sizes, different types of failure. Could you name a few so that we can just sort of have a little bit of background and context about the F word?
Sure. So, I mean, failures, when we talk about failure, people often think about failure of a business, but that's probably the biggest one that can actually happen. We actually go through what we would classify as failures every day. It could be as simple as something like losing a sale that you really wanted. It could be that a client doesn't do what they say they're going to do. You might not achieve your goals for the week. So all these things we classify as failures. And I suppose no matter whether it's a large failure or a small failure, we have a choice about how we actually deal with it. So a lot of us will choose to go into that downward spiral. We're human beings, we beat ourselves up, How could I possibly have let that happen? What's wrong with me? Why didn't I do better? What could I have done differently? It's all my fault, I'm a failure. Or you can actually choose to go, okay, so it didn't work out, but what can I learn from it and how can I move forward from it? And as you can imagine, the second option gives you a lot more positive ways to move forward, and it means you actually take something from the experience rather than beating yourself up.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And would you say sometimes when entrepreneurs or people start comparing themselves as well with maybe a competitor or a friend and they see more success and they feel failure, is that a type of failure as well?
Absolutely. And I think, we again, as humans, we do that a lot. We look at somebody else and we go, well, look at them. They looks like they've got this amazing life, this amazing business. They've got all this stuff going on. And here I am and I'm struggling and it's difficult and it's not the way it should be. And that's the interesting thing, the way it should be. Who says the way that it should be? Who actually defines success? There's a societal definition of success, but at the end of the day, it's your business, it's your life. You get to decide what success actually looks like. And I think it's really interesting, you look at all these people who are put up on pedestals as being the poster boys or the poster girls for success. Yep. And yet in reality, yes, they're successful now, but they too have been through their fair share of failures. Yep. Richard Branson, bankrupt, can't remember how many times. Rod Drury, amazing success with zero, but I know he's invested in other companies that didn't do quite so well. So everybody we talk about, we think of them as being successful, they've had their fair share of failures along the way. So it's not a negative thing at all. It's about how you deal with it.
It's part of a journey.
Absolutely, it's part of a journey. Yeah. It's the entrepreneurial journey that we all love and hate.
Yes, definitely, but still staying onto that path. But okay, so what is the first step then to bounce back from failure?
So I think the first thing is to recognise that you've got that feeling of failure. And remember, it is only a feeling. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are a failure. It's a feeling that you're having where you're not feeling like you're successful. So the first thing is recognising it and actually looking and going, okay, so what actually really happened? And sometimes, it may be that the failure it may well be something you've done, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because you can learn from that. And I think also you have to be very careful that we don't know what the grander plan is. Sometimes a failure at one point in time can feel like the end of the world, but in actual fact, when you look back on it sort of many years later, I look at my own failure of my business close to 11, 12, maybe even 13 years ago now, and at the time, it was the worst thing ever. I thought I was a complete loser, how could I possibly get to this state, what was wrong with me, and the business had failed because of me, but in actual fact, I wouldn't be the coach I am now today if I hadn't had that experience of that failure. And it's meant that when I go into a business the next time round, I can look back on that and go, hey, what have I learnt from that? How do I create a different way of being in the future? So the first thing is recognise it. Recognise when you're feeling like that. And then start to look at it and go, so what is really going on? And what am I sort of feeling about that?
Yeah, so what's really going on? And it doesn't mean that it's all about you as well. It could be several factors. Say, for example, would you say market or timing?
Yeah.
Sometimes if you have a great business idea and then all of a sudden you go, yeah, I'm going to put all the money. Let's do it. I'm so excited.
Yes.
And it just fails
Yeah.
and you feel like a failure, but it's not really you. It's more of external factors. What do you think of that?
Yeah, no, I've had two businesses that were like that. One of them was actually back in the early days when we had people who remember old Nokia phones with green and black screens. And there was a technology then called WAP technology, which was now what we would call mobile internet, but it was really basic, it was menu driven. And we started a business in that. We went, oh my God, this is the next best thing. And we tried to create this business around people finding things on this WAP technology, which sounded fantastic. And it was, except it was about 7 years too early. And as a consequence, we put a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort into it, and it was just the wrong timing. And there's also external influences. I was thinking about, there's things like, if you think about a bit of business failure doesn't always come from the things that you do. What about when they had the Christchurch earthquakes down in Christchurch?
Yes.
A lot of businesses went under because of that. That wasn't their fault. But they will still beat themselves up because they go, well, you know, why didn't I have better insurance? Why didn't I foresee it? You know, I remember going to the bank one time and I'd had a bit of a rough patch, and they said to us, why didn't you come here earlier? I said, you know, I'm sorry, my crystal ball wasn't working, so I didn't know it was going to happen. Yeah.
We would love to have one, each of us, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, yes.
So sometimes they're beyond your control, sometimes they actually are in your control. And one of the things that I've learned is you've got to recognise sometimes when it is time to fail fast. So, you know, I look back on my first business when in the WAP technology and go, wow, actually, we should have stopped a lot earlier. We put so much time, so much money, so much resource into it when in actual fact the market wasn't ready. So if we can learn from that and go, actually next time round, don't take so long, don't put so much of your money in, don't put so much time in, you know when is the time to actually fail fast.
Yep. Is that similar to cutting your losses early? Kind of?
Yeah.
Similar?
I mean, you don't have to, when I say fail fast, I mean, it could be two things you can do. You can either go and just literally go, no, this business idea isn't going to work, full stop, cut my losses, let's just leave it. Or you can learn to pivot. So you can actually go, okay, so in that particular instance, but say that using the WAP technology thing, it wasn't the right time, but what was really popular was text marketing. And so what we actually did as a company, we went, okay, so we can't make the WAP stuff work, but we can actually start running text campaigns. And so for a while there, we did really well running text campaigns because that's what the market actually wanted right there, right then.
Makes
so
sense.
a pivot is just as good, or a fail fast is where you cut your losses and go, no, it's time to move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And what else? What are the other steps that we should take just to help us bounce back then?
So again, don't take it personally. Look, analyse the situation, work out what went wrong, look for the positives. What can you learn from it? What can you take from it? And then I think surround yourself with the right people. So I think, you know, you've got a network, start leaning on them, start asking for help, because you don't want to go through this on your own. It's very easy to get into that downward spiral of beating yourself up. Whereas if you go and talk to other people and you have a conversation with them, the chances are they might go, hey, you know what? I've actually been there as well. You know, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Whereas if you're just doing it on your own, your only frame of reference is your own frame of reference. And it's very easy to get sort of really blinkered around that. So go talk to people, ask for help. And I have this thing about asking for help because, because we don't
know what you're going to say.
Do we?
Yeah.
And I think especially as Kiwis, we hate to ask for help. But the reality is, if I ask you to help me, how does that make you feel?
Truthfully?
To help me, not you ask. So
right.
I come to you and go, Jam, can you help me?
Oh, open arms, definitely.
Love to, right?
Yes.
And then afterwards you feel amazing because you've actually helped with me on my problem.
Yeah.
So if you don't actually ask people for help, you're denying them that feeling. So how shit is that you're actually going, no, I don't want to allow you to help me so that you can feel good. So actually asking for help is not a bad thing. And people will love to do it, they'll want to help you, they get to feel good, and you get somebody you can actually talk to. And, you know, someone to bounce around ideas, a shoulder to cry on, whatever it might be. So that would be my next bit of advice.
I think that's my favorite. Because and all of that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll stop for a bit before your next tip, obviously.
Yes.
Do you have any questions from the virtual audience, if anyone's watching right now? I'm sure there are. Or from the audience here at the Common. Anyone? They're smiling right now, thinking of the big question. Yep.
I would just like to ask, how do you go about managing your work-life balance? Because you have so much stuff to do, you have so many businesses operating under you, so many things to go do. How do you go about managing that, work-life balance?
So I think it's really easy. My philosophy is, and you may have seen a video on this on YouTube, where they actually take a jar and they've got these big rocks, these small rocks and this sand, and they try and put it into the jar, and they put the sand in first, then they put the small rocks, then they put the big rocks, and of course it doesn't fit. So the analogy is the big rocks are the really important stuff in your life. So if you can actually work out what's really, really important to you and what success is for you, because success for you is not the same as success for me. So what is important to you, use those big rocks and then actually put them in first. If you can put those in place in your life and make time for them, make space for them, and make sure you literally, I block out times in my diary where I say, and you're going to laugh, but I even have a thing that says, it's 9:30, you should be in bed right now. And that means that I know that is blocked out for sleep, because sleep is really important for me. So if you put those big rocks into the diary and you go, right, I'm going to commit to those and do them, then all the other stuff can actually fit in around it. So it really is about knowing what's important for you, why you're here, what success looks like for you, and get those big rocks in there first. The rest will just fill in around it. And if not, so be it. Yeah.
Yep, I just wanted to, just in case, obviously, you didn't hear that question, it was more about work-life balance and a
Yes.
little bit of time management and making sure you're successful when you do things. Yep, okay, thank you. Are there any other questions from the audience before we move on?
In addition to what he asked,
Yes.
sometimes it happens that we have a successful business.
Yep.
As an entrepreneur, I have a business, my business is ahead, people are liking my business. But at the same time, I have a family.
Yes.
And end of the day, I realize that I cannot take a day off, I cannot take a break. But I'm also not giving sufficient time to my family, and that is where a feeling of failure comes in.
Right.
Yeah, so how do I manage that? What is your view on that?
So first of all, if you listen to last week's thing with Dave here, he had some amazing
Yeah,
ideas
yeah.
about that. He's come back in a couple of weeks as well about how you actually do that. Because what happens with a business owner often is we go into business, we're passionate about something, we throw ourselves into it, and we become the handcuffs of the business because it literally revolves completely around us. So there's a couple of things that I would suggest that you look at, and I don't have all the answers, but one of the things was if your family really, really is important, you have to say, that's one of my big rocks, I have to make sure I have time for that. So how do I do that? I can look at outsourcing some things. I can look at getting some help from other people. I can look at, at the moment we've got a number of interns in here working with us. You can bring people in who can actually help you. So get them to the stuff that you don't really need to do. And it's difficult because initially they won't do things as well as you think you do them. But the reality is they actually do, it's just not the way you would do it. So you have to learn to let go a little bit and go, right, my family actually is as important. It has to be in there first. If it means that the other stuff I have to outsource and it's done at 80%, 80% is actually good enough. Yeah, and learning what you can outsource, what you love, what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. Yeah. And seriously, I talk about blocking out time in my diary. It sounds silly, but I have things in there like reading and education, I have my sleep, I have my yoga classes, I have my meditation and my dog walking. And it's not to say that, somebody comes to me and says, oh, can you meet tomorrow? And I go, no, I've got a yoga class. But what it does mean is I actually have to look at my diary and go, oh, I'd actually block that out for my yoga class. Do I want to make the choice to give up that yoga class to do something else? Or am I going to commit to it? So it doesn't mean that you're rigid in terms of, no, I've got to do my yoga class, I can't do it. But I know that it actually makes you look at it and go, oh, that's right. I actually had time planned for my family then. I had time planned as a date night for my partner, whatever it might be. So you go, what's more important right now? Is it my family, is it my date or my partner, or is it actually work? And you get to choose.
Awesome, thank you so much. Okay, I know we don't have much time, but
Yes?
you please carry on with your other tips on how to bounce back from
Yeah.
the F word.
There's only a couple more. One of the things I think we've talked about in some ways here now is define what success actually looks like for you. Because, society's idea of success is potentially around having lots of money, lots of free time. Well, that might not actually be important to you. I've got some business owners that I work with where money actually doesn't make it doesn't do anything for them. And it's not their sort of motivating force. They want to spend more time with their family, and so that's what they need to do. So success is not the same for everybody. What does success look like for me? My greatest buzz is actually helping people. And so I feel successful I'm actually doing that. Now, don't get me wrong, you've got to have a business that makes money, otherwise it's not going to be sustainable.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, don't let society tell you what success looks like. Decide what success looks like for you and make sure that's what you're going after. Because then you get to celebrate that success when it happens, And I think that's the other thing I was going to say is that I think that as Kiwis, as business owners, as human beings, we don't celebrate success enough. We celebrate, again, the big successes. We get miserable about the big failures. What about the small successes?
Agree.
What about the fact that in a moment we'll have finished recording the 11th episode of
Yeah,
the Coaches
exactly.
Are Common and we can go, yay, we've done it,
Yeah.
And I often make my clients high-five me for small things. And they go, oh, but it was just but it was only. No, it's still a success. And the more you celebrate that success, even the small wins, the more that energy builds and the more that you'll get more exciting things happening.
I kind of, that may be the wrong phrase, preventive maintenance kind of thing. So
Yes.
instead of crashing because you're so stressed and then you feel like a failure,
Yeah.
so you celebrate the small wins, which is great,
Yeah.
right, to just keep you going.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right, yeah.
Okay.
And the very last thing is, I think that what's important is, don't add to the stigma. So if somebody is feeling like they've failed, so if you come to me, Jam, and you say you feel like a failure, be really, really careful. I don't know necessarily what's been going on for you. I don't know what the external influences are. I don't know, what the whole story is. So, we don't want to add to the stigma of failure. So in actual fact, what I need to be is supportive for you. I need to be there to listen to you. Sometimes it's out of your control. So, let's not talk about failure as a stigma. Let's just make sure actually what it really is an opportunity to learn. That's what failure really is all about. And an opportunity to go forward. And what happens, it's like every time you have a failure, no matter how small, your next step forward tends to be a whole lot higher because you've learnt from that. So every failure, while it feels like a step backwards, is actually a step towards something greater.
Yep. No, that's awesome. Just before we end, etc., and of course, just to sort of summarize, the support system. I mean, that is something that you offered to us as members here at the Common, right?
That's
and,
right.
I literally sometimes, Deborah, do you have 5 minutes? Even if it's as small as just a talk, and it helps really, it really, really helps.
And I've made you high five too, haven't I?
Yes, so many times to people. And she is very, very, very supportive, and that's why I'm still here, still live and going. Woohoo! Let's do. Okay, just takeaways, I guess, before we end. Just to summarize everything, because that's a lot of stuff, and. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, I mean, the takeaways would be, sort of turn failure into a pivot if you can.
Yes.
Don't take it personally. Look for the learnings from it. Choose to take the positives out of it. So what can I take from that moving forward? Do ask for help. Do ask for support. And make sure that, you're really clear that success, what your success looks like, so you're actually going after the right things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The F word. Awesome. As always, Deborah, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge to everyone and fellow entrepreneurs as well out there. Next week, it is still at 4 o'clock.
It is,
yes. 4 o'clock. So just a new time slot. We had to move things around. Next week is Suicide Prevention Week. So we do have Katrina North back on stage, and we'll talk more about that, obviously, next week.
And Katrina is actually trained in suicide prevention, did a lot of work with Lifeline, so she's here to talk to us because, as I said, we do have a choice about failure, but people do get caught up in the beating themselves up, and sometimes it becomes too much. So she can talk to us about, when you really do find yourself completely out of control and not quite sure what to do, she can actually talk through how you can help yourself and help others around you as well.
Fantastic. No, I'd love to be, I will be here actually.
Yes, you will.
Yes, I will. I will. Thank you everyone again for joining us here at the Coaches of the Common. See you again next week, 4 o'clock p.m.